Whilst we wait for others to join and settle in, I would like to play a very short video which, in a nutshell, describes the qualities and traits of a trailblazer.
The Trailblazers, the agitators, the creators, the visionaries, those that dare to be different. When the world stands still, trailblazers engage with curious minds and bold ideas. They embrace change. In spite of opposition, in spite of non-believers, trailblazers lead the future.
It is during challenging times that trailblazers, those who aren't afraid of change and are truly forward-thinking, show up and make a difference. And never before have hoteliers had to review their operations in as close as detail as the present. Physical interaction is limited, and digital solutions have been adopted in order to simply survive. What does the future hold for an industry that's inherently people-oriented? And we will address this question in today's conversation about the human versus digital concierge. So the Boutique Hotel Trailblazer webinar series will offer a snapshot of what to expect at the Urban Living Festival, which is a live and in-person event that we're holding at Tobacco Dock in London, 25th and 26th of November. The festival is themed around 3 stages. We have stay, live and work, and it's here that we are going to map the future of the hospitality and real estate industries. We're offering a fantastic deal at the moment, a 40% discount on tickets to ULF. The offer is only available during September, so now's the time to get yourselves over to urbanlivingfestival.com and use the code ULF40, and you do not want to miss out on this one. So I'd just like to run through a few housekeeping rules before we begin. Those who are watching, please keep yourselves on mute with your cameras turned off. This is just so that we have no interference during our conversation. There will be around 45 minutes discussion, followed by around 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. And if you do have a question, you can post these using the chat function, and I will get round to these at the end. So my name's Eloise Hansen. I am the news editor at Boutique Hotel News, which is part of the international hospitality media portfolio. We are a B2B publisher and events producer for the hospitality industry, and we run 2 other websites called Service Department News and Short Term Rentals. I have a super lineup for you today, and we'll post all contact information into the chat for you all to connect. And I will ask each trailblazer to introduce themselves in a minute, but before I do, I would like to offer some background on our topic today. Here are some headlines that BHN has published recently, which all relate in some way to the concierge conundrum of human versus digital. Now, the top story in the middle is a survey published by Forbes Travel Guide, and hoteliers cited the top operational challenge as adapting and maintaining luxury service levels amid the constraints of COVID-19. And I'm sure we're going to delve into this a little deeper today. Here are some more headlines from other publications too, and I'd like to read out a quote which was taken from an interview last month with Anastasia Seebohm, who's the chief executive of the Quintessentially Group, which is an organisation that started off as a concierge service and has evolved to become a lifestyle management firm. And she said, The importance of human interaction, authentic experiences, and an engaging and emotional connection with brands should not be underestimated. On this screen, we also have a report published last month by Criton, which reveals how sentiment towards technology has changed over the year so far. And of the statistics, 80% of hotel guests stated that they would use a contactless hospitality app. Now, contactless is a word that's appeared in many of these headlines and will certainly feed into our conversation today. So without further ado, let's meet our Trailblazers. So Janice, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course, Eloise, and thank you first of all for having me today. My name is Janice Sorensen. I am the general manager of the Beaumont Hotel, and I've been at the hotel for now coming up 5 years. How did I get here? I think most relevant to this talk is that I started my career as a concierge, working in my native Berlin. I moved to Paris after that, working interestingly under my current head concierge, Christophe Caron, as a junior concierge, becoming a Clé d'Or concierge, so a golden key concierge in Paris. Worked as a concierge in Barcelona to then reopen the Plaza Hotel as the assistant head concierge in New York. So by all means, a topic that's very close to my heart and I'm very passionate about. So thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, and thank you, Janice. Jeremy, would you like to go next?
Yes, thanks always for having me. Hi everyone. So my name is Jeremy Atlan. I'm one of the co-founders of Wishbox, which is a guest experience platform. Obviously, me and my partner as well came from the hospitality industry. We came from a slightly different kind of hospitality industry that you know here. We came from the vacation rental industry, and we were struggling to find solutions to bridge the gap between the traditional hotel and the vacation rental decentralized hotel operations. And that's basically how we came to find a solution that would kind of meet the needs of hotels today of social distancing and contactless we've been talking about. So thanks for having me today.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Jeremy. And Jen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, this is Jen from LaaSie. We are powering a very new kind of loyalty through instant gratification and artificial intelligence. This came about from a personal experience where points-based loyalty programs aren't really relevant to myself, to our team, to majority of customers today. And we've been able to work at this for the last 4 years to really reinvent it by giving someone a personalized reward that is instantly gratifying. We are based in New York and we're happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. And Rogier, would you like to go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Rogier Braakman. I have the privilege of leading the Penta Hotels worldwide since beginning of this year. Before that, I've been working in hotel business for about 20 years for Hilton, Ritz-Carlton, and before I actually founded my own company consisting of 2 hotel brands, Centon Hotels and Pillows Hotels, which I sold back in 2018. And then I took a sabbatical to take on a journey to learn more about technology, to be honest, because I saw that there's this huge trend going on where people are becoming much harder and harder to find and payroll increase, whereas technology and scalability is really something that we have to introduce in hotel business. Before I actually entered Penta Hotels, and well, we know what happened in February, March this year, so actually a very good spot-on topic to discuss how to pursue and how to proceed in the upcoming decades, I would say. Mm-hmm. So thanks for having me.
That's all right. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Julie.
Hey Louise, thanks for having me. I'm Julie Grieve. I'm the founder and CEO of Criton. And Criton's a guest engagement and integrations platform. What we're focused on doing is helping hotels get ROI from all of the technology that they have there. Because what we found is they have a lot of technology, but unless you make it easy for the guests to engage by putting it all together, guests don't engage, and therefore there's no return on investment. So we have a system that allows all of that technology, PMS integration, check-in, digital key, messaging, loyalty, ordering, goes into a native app, and it's white labeled to make sure that the hotel can deliver brand. And before I was having a mad moment starting a technology business, I also came from hospitality. So I set up and ran a luxury service department business in Edinburgh. And that's where I had the idea for Criton, because it is, for me, all about how you can introduce digital services that can enhance guest services, but also make sure that we help our bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Julie. So let's begin. Let's dive straight on in, and I would like to direct my first question to Janice, as you did mention that your background has been in as a concierge. You were a Golden Key hotel concierge. So in light of recent months, how is the role of the concierge being amplified?
Well, I think a good concierge is a problem solver, and I think we all had enough problems, especially when this whole crisis started, to rearrange our travel. So alongside the travel agent community, I think also the concierge community role really has been vital. And I think it's such an interesting discussion today, because it's not so much for me digital versus high, versus the high touch. It's more, how can we embrace the digital advances to benefit the experience that our clients have. I think the role of the concierge has fundamentally changed over the last 20 years or so. And I often say to my team here, if you can Google it, we don't need a concierge for it. And I think that as much as a concierge before had a black book and a lot of contacts on their site and a lot of sort of personal recommendations around the globe, I think today, anything that a client can receive through digital, obviously he doesn't need the concierge through. So what is it that a concierge offers more? It's time and access. Is how can we save our clients time and how can we allow access to things that people can't access digitally. So technology in some ways frees up the concierge to be able to more focus on the customer. But the digital won't replace the concierge, of course. So they no longer need to spend hours in reconfirming flights, but they can spend the time to introduce a city very curated to one of their clients.
Mm-hmm. As the manager of a luxury hotel, has your perception or attitude towards this idea of a digital concierge changed at all, again, in light of what's happened?
I think that, once we all can start traveling again, I think we're yearning to go back to a world that hasn't changed, beyond our recognition. And I think this element of personal connection and meaningful relationship, people will be yearning for this coming back to our hotels. I do think that the digital sort of revolution also in hospitality has been advanced by this pandemic. I think that a lot of the technologies and a lot of the trends that we have seen have been accelerated, but the real human connection within luxury hospitality won't be replaced by digital. So I think that we'll see more and more the legwork being done by digital platforms to allow our concierge team to add value that only a human being can add.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you've just said it there, the pandemic has in a way accelerated the adoption of technology, specifically the mobile app. And Julie, I'd like to ask this question to you, please. Where are you seeing the demand coming from for this type of product?
Well, I mean, we do tend to focus on the 4- and 5-star resorts and independent hotel and service department markets. So that tends to be who we deal with. And I think, if you look at the recent statistics that have come out from Hotstats around about break even, that piece where you can get your guests to engage with something that they maintain and then you use it to upsell is really compelling, because if a luxury hotel is running with full service, it really brings their break-even point down. So we're finding that they come to us because they're struggling with all of this technology and how you get it into your guests' hands, but they're really interested in how they can sell more to their guests and really drive that incremental guest spend. And you know, it's not just about spend, although of course bottom line is important. They're concerned about experience, and I do have quite a lot of conversations with them around about how does this sit next to luxury experience. And you know, my answer is it sits with choice. You know, for every guest you've got who wants to come to reception, you've got a guest who doesn't. And so if you can service both the way they want to be serviced, then that means you've actually hit on luxury, which is all about choice. But we are mostly dealing with luxury. I think maybe it's right to say that the self-service hotels were probably looking at technology before this, whereas actually now we're finding we're having, you know, higher up the chain, let's just say, conversations in that luxury market, because they understand they're going to have to embrace it to meet with contactless, and then what else can they do with it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Jeremy, I'd like to ask this question to you, please. You mentioned that Wishbox started off in the vacation rental space. So how are other hospitality asset classes adopting these digital tools? I mean, what are clients now looking for?
Yeah, so the thing is that, funny thing was that basically those other assets were looking at solutions to kind of, as I said, bridge the gap they had with the hotel, because they didn't have any front desk or they didn't have any concierge services. So in order to communicate with their guests, they needed to find technological solutions to do that. And at the beginning, it was just pure operational technological solutions. They were doing it just for checking in the guest, signing the contract, payment processing, communication, and etc. But once they started working with those tools, they found a lot of new opportunities. Like Julie said, for example, they would have now, first of all, the full control of the guest journey, the guest communication journey, from the moment he books until he checks out. So everything from brand awareness and the feelings they want to kind of entice and give the guest, even before he even arrives to the property, they could do it with this product. And apart from that, during those roads of communication with the guest, they had the opportunities of offering upselling, like customized and very targeted upselling for each one of the guests, depending on his profile and on the way they were consuming this information. So all of that was kind of very important for the other assets. And now with the COVID, hotels are kind of getting to the knowledge that, yeah, all of this operational stuff that they would do face-to-face now, like check-in and keys and all of those things, they don't need to do them on a personal way. They can do it on a digital way, and it will free up time for them to have valuable communication with their guests and not just operational and bureaucratic communication with them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that communication, that guest engagement has been, again, amplified massively recently. And I think it's absolutely crucial to retaining a loyal customer base. So Rogier, if I can ask this question to you, please. How do you balance the high tech and the high touch?
Yeah, good question. I think that's just something that we're dealing with every day, right? I mean, that's we were talking, I think Julie was talking about human interaction, and I think in the near future, human interaction is the new luxury. It actually is, because meeting people has become a luxury during COVID crisis. And so high tech and high touch should somewhere balance that, because I think that's also something why you go to a hotel, right? To meet new people. And I was in one of our hotels last week, actually, where it was very busy. So that was also joyful to see. But there you really see that the interaction is something that we really have to work on. So I'm a big fan of digital, but especially when I'm visiting one of our hotels, I become more aware that how important it is that this digital connection doesn't doesn't really supersede or exceed the digital experience. So I think that's something that we try to balance, especially also with the campaigns that we've been running during COVID, right? Obviously, we want to give the people the feeling that you can deal with everything digitally. And in the meantime, you should also be able to pick up the phone and talk to someone and ask, do I really feel safe? Because I'm not sure if this device is giving me the safety. Yeah, at least I won't get contaminated through my device. But the question is, obviously, does it release my burden to actually start traveling? So from a loyalty perspective, I think digital contact should be something like hygiene. It's something that we just have to do. It has to be there. It has to be a new commodity. And we have to add the high touch. I don't know how it is with you, but if I just get a standard organized email like, "Hi, Rogier Braakman, I'm so glad that you're staying at Penta Hotels next week, and do you want a room upgrade?" Then I'm sure that our general manager hasn't written that message to me. But if I just get a quick LinkedIn message or whatsoever saying, "Hi, Rogier, it's great that you're staying with us again," then I know, hey, he knows that I'm coming. So I think it's that balance, and the bigger you get, the more difficult it becomes. But I think it's just this fine line, especially now, that we just have to walk and that we just have to evaluate, I think, and review on a daily basis to see, okay, what makes our guests feel, what makes them enticed to visit us. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I mean, Julie, you were talking about this earlier, about the conversations that you've been having. People are questioning how do you balance that, get that service right. And I would like to ask the same question to you. What are you advising to your clients about balancing that high tech and high touch?
Well, before COVID, I probably spent the 3.5 years we've been in existence reminding hoteliers that they don't know what every single one of their guests want, because the first thing you've got to think about is what does the guest journey look like nowadays? And it might be that because you think a fantastic experience is all people doesn't mean that that's necessarily what your guests want. So my view of this is there should be blend and should be choice. These devices, I'm holding up a phone, are so much part of our life now that this handoff between device and person for me is crucial. And I say all the time, nobody skips into a hotel desperate to stand at a reception desk, desperate to speak to their receptionist. It's not what they're there to do. They're there to get into their room, make sure it's the right room, you know, open the mini bar, open all the drawers, run about like you do when you get into a hotel room, and you know, go to the bar, have a bit of a banter with the guy behind the bar, the girl behind the bar. That's what hospitality is. And so, you know, those amazing sheets in hotels, that's hospitality, not the person behind the desk who's got to type into a PMS and wait for the old-fashioned screen to move 4 or 5 times. So think about your guest journey and think about how you can remove those touch points. And, you know, look at what Accor did, where they started to take the desks away. I did the same in Lateral City. I didn't want a barrier. And I wanted just to be able to react person to person without a barrier when someone came. So before COVID landed, that's the conversations I was having. And they haven't changed much, apart from people are now saying, okay, we want to make sure contactless is part of their stay. So how do we engage with them beforehand so it's not a big rush when they arrive? I think that's the big change, is getting all of the information a guest needs in their hand before they come, and then what can you do with it thereafter?
Mm-hmm. And now going back to the topic of customer loyalty, Jen, I'd like to ask this question to you, please. How can hotels leverage AI to earn that loyalty?
So we've seen with AI and technology, it's been able to allow companies to anticipate what their customers want and offer it at the right time. Today, Amazon can tell you what your kids want for their birthday. Netflix can figure out what movies you want to watch next. But hotels are still pushing points and generic offers across all of their customers. We saw a recent Oracle study where it showed that hoteliers, the majority of hoteliers actually believe that their offers are relevant, when in fact 78% of their guests do not find them valuable. Using AI technology to personalize at the individual level will be extremely important to bridge this gap and to meet the customer's expectations of today. Now imagine one of your guests, let's say Amy, who's based in New York City right now, is browsing Janice's London property for a week-long stay in December for 2 adults and 2 kids. During that booking journey, when she's on your website, you surprise her with personalized rewards. It could be an Uber credit that she could use, a shopping offer from Sephora, or a ticket to hop on hop off bus in London that you know her family will enjoy. The AI is learning with every single one of those interactions with every one of her selections, and it's moving the needle for Amy. It's getting her to actually make that booking. She gets to use that Uber credit from the airport to your hotel. By the time she's checking in, she's already a pretty happy customer. During her stay, your loyalty program leverages AI to further personalize suggestions, offers to her that she can use locally in London. And after her trip, you continue the conversation a month later, knowing how much Amy enjoys family activities and shopping. You surprise her with local New York rewards that she can use. This also prompts her to book a weekend stay at one of your sister properties. Personalizing this end-to-end guest experience from when she's just considering your hotel to her stay at the property and after her trip really creates a continuous stream of surprise and delight moments that are meaningful and relevant to the guests. And it really can only be done with AI. I think we'll be seeing a shift from traditional loyalty programs that typically have 3 static offers, static tiers, silver, gold, platinum, to evolving to an AI-based dynamic loyalty program without the rigid tiers, without waiting for qualification. It's instant and it's relevant to the guests.
So these future loyalty schemes are going to be completely digital, or still have that, if you want to call it, I wouldn't say necessarily a physical touch, but you do see it taking on that instant digital AI dimension?
Human interaction, will still be a necessity, but elevating that hospitality experience through AI and digitizing it to create that sort of personal relationship with the customer will be extremely important.
The important word there really is personalization. And I'd like to ask this next question to Janice, please, because with personalization, I think comes an element of trust, and a concierge is somebody, I believe, that you can trust to help you. And how do you see trust being manifested in the luxury hotel segment?
First of all, you're right. You can always trust your local concierge. I think in many ways we're lost with all the information out there. And I think that it's because there's such an oversupply on what people can do or should do, frankly, and you very often don't know who's actually behind these information. I think a concierge who works locally and has these personal local relationships to the neighborhood and to the city that they work in and represent will really give such a more meaningful suggestion really to clients. And I think that in luxury hospitality, we'll always remember the people. We'll always remember the people that we connect with. And concierges, when you're a concierge and you start this career, you will always learn that the question is so much more relevant than the answer, because what's best for you is not best for me. And good concierges understand very intuitively of how to read their guests and how to understand on what experience is right for the guest just on that day, in that moment, based on maybe a mood that a guest just shared with you. And I think that really deep connection that only a human-to-human connection can really establish will always, you know, win towards technology. You might not always have all information straight at hand. You know, you might not be always as quick as a technology application, but it will always be sincere and it will always be tailored to the individual need. And I think Colin Nagy from Skift put it really well. He said, it would be easy to dismiss a concierge as a relic of another time, but concierges are the secret weapon of educated travelers. And when the job is well done, it's vital. And I think I can only second that and say that the job of the concierge has become more and more challenging because guests arrive at hotels so much better informed than they've ever have. And it's just not good enough to read Time Out magazine. You know, you really need to walk the city and make these relationships to add value that a system cannot add. And I just want to stress the point again, is it's not technology against concierge and concierge against technology. But the concierge needs to understand that the goalpost has moved. And they cannot compete with technology. They'll always lose when it comes to receiving information that is quickly obtainable. And I think once you start embracing it, and once hotel owners and general managers use the systems to allow concierges to do what only concierges can do, and the concierges look at their profession with what actually makes the biggest difference to their clients, I think this profession will be more relevant than ever, because one thing we'll yearn more and more is these real connections, real people, real connections, not motivated by any algorithm, not motivated by any sponsorship or any application that directs you towards a certain direction. And that trust will bring people back to hotels again and again. I just see one panel chat actually just popping up, and this trend of self-check-ins. And I just want to mention one thing to this, because often when you go to hotels right now, you see there's no more a concierge desk, there's no more reception desk. You know, you have like a lounge ambassador who checks you in with an iPad, or you just do it digitally. And you know, what we need to understand is that these desks are not there for hotels. They're there for clients. And it's not so much that we cannot do without them, and we don't need to show our clients how technically advanced we are, that we don't need reception desks anymore. The technical or the transactional interaction to swipe a credit card, have the sign, have a guest jump to so many hoops before they can go to the room, that's annoying. And if technology can prevent that from happening, that's great. But if you have jet lag and you come downstairs at a different time and you don't know where to go because there's no desks anymore and there's no people with golden keys anymore in the lobby, that's bad. And hotels have to be very careful to not design the environment, standards, procedures, and technology to suit their needs. Because just because it's possible doesn't mean it's the right thing. We always need to think this through, is that what does the guest actually want here, and not what's best for a hotel operation, because that's what people will pay the rate for. It's not efficiency, it's meaningful relationships, and that's going to be more and more.
On that note, talking about delivering that value, I'd like to ask this question to Jeremy, please, in that what can technology offer that will help to drive value to guests? Yeah,
so I think Jane gave a good introduction to what my answer is going to be, actually, because the thing is that, again, technology is not here to replace the concierge or the front desk. It's a tool for the concierge to better communicate with his guests. So again, first of all, we need to think and understand who is the guest that's coming to the hotel today, okay? It's a totally different guest than the guest that came to the hotel 30 years ago, okay? He's much more informed, it's much more technological, is really used to getting what he wants on demand, okay? If a guest would plan his trip 6 months ahead 30 years ago, today, most of the guests are going to decide on the experience they're going to do 12 hours before doing this experience, okay? So the reason those technological tools are here, and they are here to be used by those concierge and by those professionals to kind of deliver the right message to the right guest at the right moment, okay? by broadcasting messages or customizing and personalizing messages, by changing even the content they have on this guest app, on their guest app on a daily basis, on a weekly basis or whatever, in order to give the guests the value they need to get from the hotel during their stay, and even obviously before and after their stay. More than that, I think that, again, Jen was talking about meaningful conversation. Okay, the whole idea behind those concierge technological systems is to kind of, okay, there was a research talking about the average time a client talked to a hotel during a stay. Okay, the average time is between 7 minutes and 15 minutes, depending on how much information did he need and what kind of bureaucracy did he had to go through, and etc. Now, we had a very big client of ours that said, okay, I know I have around 15 minutes to talk to my guest. The conversation I want to have with him is very different than the conversation most hotels have with their guests. I don't want to ask him about his passports or payment or whatever. I don't care about that. He can give me all of that even before he arrives to the hotel. What I want to do when I get to know him and when I get this guest face to face to me is to talk with him about the facilities I have, about the experiences he can have around the city, about the important things he needs to see or can see or can be attributed to this specific type of guest. And that's why we use those technological solutions. We use them just to free up time for real meaningful conversation that will leave an impact on these guests and remind them about the person he met at the hotel, and not just, yeah, that's the idea basically.
I'd like to direct this question to Rogier, please, about as managing director of a portfolio of hotels, how would you use AI to enhance the guest experience?
Well, we've heard some very smart things already. Also, I think what Jen just said, I think is spot on. I think it's all about relevance, actually, right? AI has to boost relevance, so at least that I get offers that suit me at the moment that I need it. So, and AI can learn, I think, a lot from booking patterns from guests to basically define what kind of person you are, right? Am I someone who is just always, if it takes me half an hour to find the right booking, or am I just someone who just gets there, makes the booking and just wants to get to the hotel? So I think it's about learning who my guest is. I think that's where AI can really make a difference. For the rest, I think what I just said, and I fully agree with what Janice said, is, and also basically what Jeremy just said, it's all about the interaction in the end. That's you can have your people work on the, how I call it, the long tail of special requests, because that's what it's all about, right? Before, I think concierges and front office staff were only working on, were spending so much time on administrative tasks that you as a guest really didn't have any benefit from. And I think that Julie also mentioned this. That is something that technology will have to take away in order to come up with this find, because we can all go to Google. But like I said, I do believe that this human interaction, that you say, I go somewhere and I know that there's actually going to be people and they have time to look after me. And looking after me is not just giving me exactly the same advice that I would say that I would give to the 800 other people that are checking into the hotel. So if with AI, I mean, we should get rid of words like check in and check out. To me, it should not even exist anymore. It's just welcoming your guests like you're welcoming your guests at home, right? And you don't ask them for their passports and stuff. So like Janice said, that all has to be done. That all this hygienic stuff has to be dealt with actually before I enter the hotel, so that we actually can have this genuine conversation and that I can actually show my appreciation that you're staying with me. And AI can really take a lot of these hurdles away in order to have our people. That's what we're also focusing at Penta, is just make this make this long tail of special requests as simple as possible. And we're just a midfield hotel company, right? So we're not operating at the high end where Janice is. But again, it's all about the moment that you need a certain service and that we acknowledge who you are and why you are staying with us, whether you're with a family or you're on a quick business trip. So when I'm on a business trip, I don't need any offers that are not relevant for me at this moment. And yeah, that's, I think, where AI really makes a difference with the right application and so on. And there we see a huge development, luckily, taking place in hotel business, whereas we should really stop to avoid digitalizing everything, because then I agree with Janice, then we take the magic of the business. Why people choose us, because then they might as well spend a night at an Airbnb or some other location where they really don't need the interaction. We should really make sure that we foster this.
Mm-hmm. And off the back of that comment about why a customer or guest should choose us, I'd like to talk about brand recognition. And I'd like to ask this question to Jen, please. But how can a digital concierge help to drive brand recognition and, in a roundabout way, ultimately that trust?
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Janice and Rogier said just now. Hotels have done a phenomenal job at creating these real human connections, and that is a staple of the hospitality industry. That's an expectation. The question is, how do you elevate that guest experience? How do you create true brand affinity using technology? In this case, using AI-based sort of a digital system that enables you to anticipate each customer's needs and provide that personalized service to every customer. The reality of a human concierge or a general manager, they have limited bandwidth. They probably only really know 10 to 20% of customers that stay at that property, but all customers expect that personalized service. They're used to it, right? Their go-to companies are Amazon that provides recommendations tailored to that person. So in order for hotels to connect their human concierge, human interactions and elevate it, first of all, understanding each customer's profile, right? Consolidating the digital concierge with the loyalty profile of the customer and relying on AI insights will enable hotels to consistently create relevant experiences that enriches the guest experience overall. And this can create that brand allegiance to the hotel.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Julie, I'd like to ask this question to you, please. What is the contingency for storing data on guests? I mean, I've read a lot about this as to who controls this information.
Well, it will clearly depend on your agreement with your provider, but I think the most important thing is whoever you work with, you better be blinking sure that they've got a secure storage place for it. Because, you know, let's face it, the biggest boys in the industry have been caught out this way. I mean, ultimately the rule with data now is, you know, what are you going to use it for, and has the guest consented to it? And I think we've got to really think, what is it we're doing with that data, and making sure that if we are doing something with it, we're telling our guests what we're doing and what's the benefit to them. But I think there's two different types of data, right? There's that sort of personalized, what is that specific guest done? And then there's an anonymized trend set around about what hotels do. You know, we look at this all the time with booking, you know, how long has it taken them? You know, how many websites? The booking journey is very, very well understood. But the in-stay, what guests actually do when they check in and then they're in the hotel, if they don't actually put something on their room, we still don't know. And so if that sort of anonymized trend can be built to help hotels understand what it is their guests are doing, without being creepy, then I think there's a lot that we can do with it. But ultimately, it will depend on your system. So from our perspective, of course, the guest data that we're collecting is for our hotels guests to be able to check in, use their door key, and then as we continue to build it out, it's around about offering personalised services.
Mm-hmm. I have a question here from Bordeaux 15. which I'd like to direct to you again, Julie, is will the protection of privacy be the biggest obstacle to applying AI in hospitality?
I think no. I think it will come down to you being very clear with your guest what they're signing up to. And so making sure that you're playing with your guest if they're interacting with any of your systems. And that can be, you know, as simple as a form that they sign where they tick or don't tick to say that they're signing up to receive information. I just think we've got to be really open and upfront about it. And as I say to hoteliers all the time, tell your guests what's in it for them, because quite frankly, if I've stayed in a hotel and the last time I was there I had a specific spa, or I pre-ordered a lovely bottle of wine, and I'm going back again and the hotel knows that and gets in touch with me and says, the last thing you're here, you asked for this wine, do you want it again? That's great service. And so that's not going to freak me out. I'm going to be like, wow, that's amazing. But if they're stalking me all over the internet and saying, you looked at whatever, you know, you looked at something 100 miles from here, would you like a bus to it? I'm going to be going, look, I don't give you permission for that. So privacy for me is all about guest permission. And, you know, we have to obviously be good at the fundamentals, which is the security around the data. And then the next fundamental is making sure you use it in a way that your guest has agreed.
I have another question here, which I'd like to ask to Jeremy, please, as it's touching on the sort of vacation rentals, is how adaptable do you believe the hotel industry is to implement self-check-ins? And will it allow other asset classes, such as vacation rental homes, to capitalize on this desire for increased safety and privacy?
Well, I think we already see a lot of hotels doing self-checking and doing fully self-guest experience in the hotel. Okay, you can see a brand like Citizen M and others that are completely automating all of the guest experience today. In terms of getting those other assets to utilize on those tools, most of the tools out there today, like ours, like one of Julie's, started before in those assets. It didn't even start in the hotels. The hotels are just today catching up to what those other assets like vacation rentals already have for years. You can even see the difference in PMSs. Okay, so if the value proposition of the PMS in the hotel industry is going to be around the channel management and the room attribution and etc. In the PMSs of vacation rental, you can see that they are much more focused on the guest experience, on the guest interaction, communication, and etc. So I think you have in the vacation rental industry more than enough solutions to meet your needs and to do everything in order to have your online self-check-in and whatever you need.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to ask this next question, please, to Rogier. I have a question here from Niels Meckenkamp about, they agree saying that it depends on who you are interacting with and communicating with. But do you, however, think that there is room for the omission of no contact interactions in the current COVID climate?
I think so. There's room for everything, I think, and everyone has different needs at different moments. So I'm pretty sure that there are people who are feeling more comfortable with this and say, well, that might even be a threshold for me to even stay at a hotel. So yes, I think there are as many people as different options. However, I think that most of the people who are planning to stay at a hotel are actually going there because they do want some human interaction. But I mean, we see the success of many unmanned concepts, right? So yes, for sure, there is demand.
Mm-hmm. And Janice, I'd like to direct this next question to you, please. From Alfred Abi Musa, we have a question about guests standing in front the reception desk for check-in. What happens when you have a group of guests standing waiting for the receptionist to finish so that they can proceed? I mean, at the Beaumont, have you considered about maybe adopting digital solutions? Is this something that you are open to?
Nobody ever waits here. I really enjoy following the conversation. I think that in many ways it's about giving guests the options, and it's not even like from one guest to the other, but also a guest at a different point on their travel journey. You might go to an airport hotel, you've had a long flight, you don't want to talk to anybody, you want to do everything digital, you just want to check in, you don't want anything, you just want to go in there, and great, if they have your profile and you have the pillow you want, great. And you're gone the next day and you don't want to see anybody, and exactly, if you come to an airport hotel and there's a long line of people, you don't want to stand behind that line. That's absolutely right. I think in many ways technology disrupts a very traditional industry. Like, look at the titles that we have. I mean, guest relation. We don't have guest relation here. If you think of that, you have a hotel with whatever, 180 employees, 6 of them are guest relation. What does that say about the others? Like, it's not right. So we obviously need to use the intelligence that you have in your workforce. And the concierge today is so much more than somebody who reserves a restaurant. They fill a much bigger role, and they communicate within departments here to collect intelligence, but human intelligence, to communicate, from one department to the other. And, small luxury hotels like the Beaumont, we have 95% of people's arrival times. We know when people are coming. So we tell people in the morning if their rooms are prepared or not. So it's about really understanding, what is the client here to do? What do they want to do? And what can we do to get out of the way? Hotels often get in the way of this. And we obviously need to make sure that we tailor our procedures, standards, call them what you want, that it suits the client, not us. So very often we have people, if their room isn't prepared, for example, they won't stand at some line because they will only come at 4 because they go to the office before, because they know. But you don't want to come to the hotel, then wait in line, then have the receptionist speak half an hour with housekeeping to understand your room isn't ready for 4. That's annoying. If you get a text in the morning to say, you know what, we have the room you wanted, but it might take until 3:30, people say, great, can we help with a restaurant reservation for a lunch spot? That works. So I think if I were to trade in seeing somebody that I care for versus on occasion waiting a minute to see that person, yeah, I'll wait. The thing is that as humans, you cannot fast track or fast click human relations. It doesn't work. There's no system to it. You need to build trust with people, and that takes time. And you only build trust with people and not, technology you trust to work a certain way. But technology doesn't care for you. It doesn't. It facilitates, but it doesn't care for you. And it's about that mix. And I think that on the long term, we'll have 2 hospitality systems. The very quick, easy, full digital access, and the super luxury. I think the middle sector is going to be really complicated to cater for. That's just my opinion. But the human relationship it's going to be more challenging for people working in hotels, and we need to start looking at educating our teams differently. Do you need an art curator in the lobby in a hotel at all times? I mean, you have people who are so educated right now in luxury hospitality, and they come to our teams asking questions that, frankly, somebody who's 22 and just started in the industry, because we always put our newbies to the front, the managers on the back, but the newbies to the front. So I think we need to really look at the system of hospitality and say, who meets whom, when, and for what purpose, and what can technology take away? But it's often in hotels the overload of information that complicates it. They don't get the simple stuff right. You have a profile of 6 pages, but they don't remember your name. So technology needs to help to get the simple stuff right and not get in the way of that experience, but enable it. Not sure if that answered his question.
Well, I'd like to finish off on one sort of general sweeping question about how the adoption of technology is going to shape or change the way that hotels are managed in the future. So I'll go around as you appear on my screen. So let's start with you, Janice.
I mean, it will change hotels. Of course it does. And the thing is that, you know, I worked in New York when this thing came out, and I lined up around the block, and it was like much bigger, but it felt beautiful. And I didn't even think, you know, I bought Apple stock at the time and sold it like 3 months later because I thought I made a killing on it. I should have kept it. Technology is there to stay. And I think that we can't fight it, but we can integrate it. Because people who right now are in their teens, when they were born, this was already here. So for us, like, we have still clients that come to print a boarding pass. I mean, that's laughable for somebody who's 13. They never print a boarding pass in their life. So, but I think the development of technology is so rapid, but the human development isn't. So people will wake up to the yearning of personal relationship. Just because you're born when the iPhone was out, it doesn't mean that you don't want to be cared for. And that thing doesn't care for you. So it does the opposite. So I think that we need to learn to integrate technology, but we also need to decide of what we want and what we don't want, and not just implement it because we can implement it. And I think that's going to be a really important point. And I'll end with this. When I was a concierge in Berlin and somebody came to my desk in 99, 2000 and had a smartphone, it was the most important person in the room. The person who comes to the desk today who doesn't have a smartphone is the most important person in the room. And that's here to stay. And I think we'll see more of that. We'll see already a shift away from this. And privacy, that so many people said, is a very important aspect. I think people want to be private, and I don't think that the young generation realizes how little privacy they actually will have all their lives of all the stuff they've been posting.
And Jeremy, how do you see the adoption of technology shaping the hotel industry?
So again, what I think is going to happen is that we're going to be seeing a mix of personalized and technological communication between guests and hotel. It's not even communication, it's relationship, okay? You're going to be finding yourself seeing solutions that are creating relationships between the hotels, okay, and the guests that are coming to the hotel, not even between the hotels and guests coming to the hotel, but even between, it's going to open doors like a communication between guests inside the hotel, between guests that doesn't even know themselves inside the hotel. And the idea is going to be, again, for each one of the hotels, depending on the profile of the hotel and depending on the profile of the guest, choosing which of those tools is going to use to cut down on operations, to enhance guest experience, to generate additional revenues on revenue streams he might not have capitalized on up until now. But the idea, again, is going to be for each one of those hotels, customizing the digital guest journey of his guest the way he wants to customize it, and to personalize it the way he's going to want to personalize it. You're going to be seeing, I think, in the future, much more personalization, much more profiling of guests, because again, in order for the technology to bridge the gap of the concierge and kind of know the guest and give him a tailored experience, is going to need a lot more data on what the guest does, what are the habits of the guest, what does he like to purchase, and what are the reasons he's here right now. But at the end, it's still just going to be a tool that the concierge or the hotel is going to use. It's not going to be replacing the concierge at the hotel. Okay.
Thank you. And Jen, what are your thoughts on technology shaping the hotel industry?
I absolutely agree with what Jeremy just said. Personalization will be key to the future of hotels. One of the things we're seeing is an even more connected world where guests are tied to their phones, right, to their computers. After the stay, how do you create that real connection and continue it when they're back home after the trip, right? And what we're seeing is personalization has been able to do that, where it's creating a targeted message from the hotel, a month, 3 months later, and it brings the guest back to the memory of their stay. It potentially incentivizes the guests to think about their next stay at the brand. And we're seeing this super connectivity through technology and AI insights is going to elevate the hospitality industry.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And same question to you, Rogier. How's technology going to shape hotels of the future?
Well, what I often say is that right now I often still have the feeling that with consumers, like me, technology serves me, but in hotel business, we're still often serving technology. And I think we have to bridge that. We have to bridge that gap. And I think that's happening right now. And I think that's really something that we have to focus on, right? The PMSs, the check-ins and everything. We need all this. And Jen could be more right, and Julie neither. But in the meantime, I mean, hotels often still are quite conservatively organized and operated. And I think that's something that we have to twist to make sure that as soon as we, as leaders in hotel business, have paved the way that technology serves us, then I think we've really, really, really made a big step. And then I think everything will be much more seamless, and we will not have these discussions anymore that we're still having right now, right? We're still in this transitioning period, I would say, in the operations, in really making sure that we get rid of our conservative way of thinking, the way we were basically taught in hotel schools and so on. No, it's a new era, and therefore I think what Janice just said, the young people, we put them in the front, and they really look at us and say, why are we working this way? This can be much easier. So I'm just excited to be part of that, to be able to work in this era, because I think we are really trailblazing right now. And due to COVID, which is something that we do not want to happen, I think has really helped us to speed up this, to speed up the awareness with us that we really have to do this right now. And before it was a choice, and now it's no longer a choice. So we just have to use it and make use of all smart systems that are out there. So we just have to make sure that we pick the right shelves and select the right applications in order to do so. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
You're welcome. And same question to you, Julie. How do you see technology shaping the industry?
Well, I think there's two parts to it, really. The first thing is operationally, we must reduce our cost to serve, and technology can do that. There's no two ways about it, but there's no standardized API in the industry yet, and there's a lot of work to do to make that possible. So operationally, I think technology will fundamentally play a part in making costs and reducing costs in operational side. In the guest side, we've said it already, we've got digital natives coming. These guys are already the people who are more likely to travel in a global pandemic. They're least at risk, most likely to have the money nowadays because they haven't got mortgages. They're prepared to spend the money on experiences. So we must embrace that. And for that means we must offer choice, because ultimately at some points, you might want to sit in a bar and look at your phone, and we see quite often people in beautiful hotels looking at their phone, and sometimes you want to chat to the person behind the bar, or the concierge give you a real local piece of information that makes your stay, and that will come from a person. So I think it's all about choice, and technology will enable that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. What an insightful conversation, very fascinating too. We have run slightly over time, and I apologize for not getting around to everyone's questions, but please do connect with all the Trailblazers, and please do carry on the conversation off webinar, so to speak. So I'm just going to run through some closing slides before we all continue with our day. Our next webinar in the Trailblazer series is being held in 2 weeks' time on Monday, October the 5th. And here we are going to be looking at design and repurposing hotels, and the link to register will be posted in the chat. We also have 2 other webinars that I'd like to quickly draw your attention to. My colleagues Paul and George are hosting these in the coming days and weeks. This Wednesday marks the next in our urban living series, where George will be looking at the worth of real estate assets. And October the 1st, Paul will examine which business model will succeed in his Rockstars webinar, and the registration links will be posted in the chat. So as I mentioned earlier, the Trailblazer series is a precursor to the Urban Living Festival, which is a live event that we're holding the 25th and 26th of November at Tobacco Dock in London. And on your screens now, you can see all our exhibitors, you can see our sponsors, and you can also see our media partners. And we are currently firing on all cylinders. We cannot wait to do business in person. And if you are interested to hear further information, please do reach out to my colleague Katie. Her details are up on your screen now. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you to my Trailblazers and to those who have joined us today. We do look forward to seeing you here again, same time, same place on October the 5th. Do take care, look after yourselves, and have a top week ahead. Bye, guys.